Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are doing our first full proper analysis for Starfox on Nintendo Switch 2. Yes, that is right. Yesterday evening, Nintendo confirmed Starfox for Nintendo Switch 2. All the rumors, theories, reports have been proven true, as expected, and it was really quite amazing. They announced the Starfox Direct with just 10 minutes of notice. We did our live stream last night, but now we're going to be combing through the Direct with more detail, more focus, also looking at all the stuff that's come up from the websites. There's really so many cool little things and big things that we've discovered, and so we're going to be doing our initial analysis of all of that today. Now, all I ask is that you sit back, relax, watch through, listen, and let me know what you think in the comments below at the end of the video. So, jumping right in here, we can see the opening footage for Starfox on Switch 2. You see the camera panning down, very cinematic, love the detail here. But as you'll see coming up, we're just going to get a lot of really cool, subtle details of the R-Wings. Like, there's just so much going on here. For starters, you see this paw print right here. There are decals on the R-Wings suggesting a history or personality, individuality for the different R-Wings and their pilots. But it goes beyond that. So you'll notice that there's like scuff marks, scratches, dirt, burns. Clearly these R-Wings have been through it here. I love the histories that are being depicted, and we're just getting started. Something else is cool, actually. You'll see kind of like these yellow hazard lights and also this rescue symbol, and there's actually like an arrow pointing to right here. And so I think there's a little bit of a suggestion that if these guys are stuck, someone from the outside can come in, punch through, and get them out. I'm kind of thinking about how when you have fighter jets in real life, the pilots have a way to get out. There's an eject button. This is maybe not exactly the same, but there are details like this that show there are ways to save the pilots, and so I really love what they're suggesting here. Here we'll see that the cockpits, you can see the different pilots in them. This is the best realized version of Starfox thanks to the Nintendo Switch 2, dramatically more powerful than prior consoles from Nintendo. And as you see here, we get our first close-up look of Fox and Cloud, and it's been a big talking point, just how realistic he looks. But I actually think it's a really good thing that they're going for realism here. This is harkening back to the initial promotional material for Starfox, the original game. They used these puppets that had more of a realistic look, and so this is kind of borrowing from that, but also becoming its own thing as well. And I do think that Nintendo needs more variety to their art styles, to their characters. Not everything should be cutesy and cartoony. Especially now with the Switch 2, this is a sizable leap from Nintendo compared to prior hardware. Over the last couple decades, Nintendo's been really behind the ball when it comes to technology. And while the Switch 2 is not more powerful than a PlayStation 5, no, but as a handheld, it's certainly dramatically more powerful than the Switch. It's a significant leap here, one of the biggest leaps we've seen in a long time. And so this is an opportunity for Nintendo to really flex some muscle and do more with their IP. Like Donkey Kong Bonanza and Mario Kart World, fantastic looking games. But those games were made with Switch 1 in mind at first, and they transitioned over mid-development to Switch 2. Certainly not possible on Switch 1 in their current forms, but from what I'm seeing here of Starfox and Switch 2, it looks like this game was designed for Switch 2 from the start, hence the more realistic, detailed look. Like, you look at the jacket, you can see the fibers, you can see the threading, the stitching of the Starfox emblem right there. Even like realistic like lighting and shadows, like as Fox is passing through, right? You can see the clouds moving outside. You can see kind of like the discoloration of the kind of window for his cockpit, but also like the lights and shadows are adjusting as he's passing through the different clouds covering the sunlight, or like the sun kind of shining through like this little window opening right here. All right, I love this. So as you'll see, there's a lot of animation work with the R-Wings. So much. Subtle things are moving in and out. It's really, really cool. But I'm going to go back here for a moment. Notice the lighting here from the exhaust. Beautiful. But I'm going to just go back here a moment, and you'll see a lot of really cool things. So it says no step here, no step here, no step here. And so I love what's being depicted here when the Starfox crew would be boarding these R-Wings in the hangar, they're running in, they're going to jump into their cockpit, right? But there are parts they actually can't step on. As you see, there's a lot that the R-Wing is moving around and adjusting for, so stepping on certain parts could cause potentially a risk for slipping and falling, or dislodging a piece or moving it where it shouldn't be, so that could cause issues with flight or launching off. And so the level of thought that's going into this is actually pretty incredible. And so there's a great level of realism here, really adds to the immersion that they put signs like this, so you can kind of imagine how this would be if this were to be real life. But it goes beyond this. Also notice how it says keep limbs clear, keep limbs clear. So keeping limbs clear, because these things adjust and move around, maybe they're kind of putting these warning signs here so someone doesn't lose a leg or a wing or what have you. And then here in the back, there's also these beware of blast signs. So the exhaust obviously looks really hot. This is a warning for those who are checking out the R-Wings when they're actually active before they launch off. That way no one gets hurt or dies or something like that. So a lot of really cool warning signs showing the realism that's being depicted here. Great stuff. So here we can see air distortion as the R-Wing is adjusting. Love it. We can even see Fox's head moving as this is happening. Also, his name is right there, Fox McCloud. Now, we do have a slightly better look of the caution thing here. Later on to the direct, we see it more clearly, but I believe this does say super effects, which would be a really good reference, because the initial Star Fox on Super Nintendo had to use a super effects chip, which allowed for 3D polygonal graphics. It was the first 3D Nintendo game on the Super Nintendo, which it wasn't possible without that extra hardware thrown into the cartridges. So it's a really cool reference there. Here we see Falco's ship, and I'm figuring it's Falco's ship because there's more personality with this one. You're just going to see these wings, these wing decals on the wings. So it's kind of funny, but also this is, yeah, a nice little reference to Falco because he is a bird. We get a nice look at the other characters, that realism we were talking about. Love it. But something else I'll point out here, we can see Pepe's ship, and you'll see that there's actually more than just a paw print here. This is showing a storied past where he's done different missions, gotten different medals, been through a lot, so I really love the reference to his veteran history. Falco looking cool. I know that there's certainly debates on how he looks, but when you account for the realism, I actually like what they're going for here. Now here we see some cool stuff. We can see the sunlight shining on the R-Wing as it passes through. Also here it says attack mode initialized, suggesting the beginning of the actual gameplay. Also here it's going to show autopilot disengaged. So it's suggestive that when they're flying in, they're not actually in control of what's happening. There's an autopilot, and it's only now when they're engaging in combat where they are actually in manual control. But just looking at the visuals here, we're going to see a lot of these characters depicted this way. You can see actually inside the cockpit, but also as they talk, you're going to see distortion to kind of suggest the feedback as they're kind of flying through all this mayhem. Also, though, as you look through, there's a lot that's actually rendered under the water. Like you can see the ocean floor here, and as we get closer to the shore, you're going to see even more of that. Here's that distortion I was talking about. Cool stuff. See here, as we get closer, the ocean floor becomes more apparent. So there's some pretty cool renders here, or rendering, I mean. But even here, like look at the sides, you can see kind of the waves crashing against the rocks and the foam on both sides here. Subtle stuff, but really nice stuff. This is something that they had even in the original, I'm pretty sure, but you can see blasting the water and splashing. Now, what I love about all this here, this is replacing the debriefs we saw in prior games, which were very simple, just kind of like chat boxes. This is actual cutscenes, and they've told us that there's going to be a lot of new stuff in these cutscenes, in these debriefs, where we're seeing a lot more interactions with the characters. We're seeing the Starfox crew interact with each other in person, not just from the cockpits. So we're going to see them walking around, doing different actions, and getting to learn a lot more about them. But neat little thing here, while we did see Rob on the website, a lot of people missed him actually in the direct itself, and he's actually right here in the background. So that's cool to see him there. But something else that's really subtle, but I really love, you look here in the corner, the bottom right. Notice how different parts of the R-Wing are flashing. So they flash here in the cockpit, and I go further back here on the bottom as well. And if I go further back, the guns, right? It's rotating around. And there, the wings. So different parts of the R-Wing are flashing through. And I just love what's being suggested here, how they're looking at the different parts of the R-Wing, making sure everything is working appropriately, maintenance is correct in case repairs are needed. So just, again, there's just a really significant attention to detail with all this stuff. There's a lot to kind of sift through and find here. Also, like, look at the lighting here as you see it bounce off his fur or his headset. It's just pretty incredible what they're going for here. Even this, like, check this out. So look at his ears. Watch. You see that? You see how he moves forward and his ears twitch? Love that. Like, that is so cool. Because he is a fox, right? And foxes, cats, different animals, when their attention shifts, sometimes their ears shift as well. And so, again, I'm just saying, like, there's just so much thought going to all of this. I love here, like, even this, you'll see the conversation going on inside the room where they're all together. Falco's talking right now, right? But you'll see Fox, like, his body tilts, his eyeballs tilt. I know it may seem like simple stuff, but to see just all this being rendered in this cutscene it's really cool. Like, there's a lot of expression here. Emotions. That little shove there, their rivals. That smirk, look at that smirk. You see, he's super serious, right? And then he smirks. Look at that. Love it. He's nerding out, Slippy. And so, like, we get to see Slippy, and he's going all in on this excitement for all these unnatural anomalies. This is more stuff than we've seen from the original game. So, like, these characters, like, even though this is technically kind of remaking the initial campaign of Starfox, and they've done it many times, the original Starfox 64, Starfox 64 3D, Starfox Zero, and now this. What I love about what's happening is that this is a reboot. They are rebooting the series, yes, again, but now with the promotion behind with the movie, this feels like they're going to finally get it right this time, and the brand is going to really come back here. Like, later on to the Direct, they make sure to show a lot of other Star Fox games that just make people aware. For a lot of people, this is like an introduction to the series for the very first time. And while, yes, we are going to re-experience the original Star Fox story for the 5th time here, there's going to be a lot of new interactions and personality shown off, and they are setting things up for the story to finally continue. If this game sees success, we can see follow-up entries here, where we get to meet Crystal from adventures and such. Here, like, Slippy is a frog, right? So his skin is very different from the others, and you can see that, like, sort of reflected on his skin. You can see the moisture. Now, this I'm just very curious on. I'm wondering if there's going to be a portion in the game where we can actually, like, hang out and just look at this stuff. Like, I'm not saying we can move around. That doesn't seem to be the case. But there's got to be at some point in the game where we can kind of look at the R-Wings like this and interact with them, because we're literally seeing that footage here. Although they do have this note here where they say, some game footage captured in-engine, actual gameplay experience may vary. I don't think that's necessarily saying that we can't see this angle. Just that, you know, they're showing some things for the sake of advertisement, but we'll see. I would love to have a moment to kind of stare at the R-Wings just like this. This is just kind of showing off the training. This is all stuff we saw in the original Star Fox, just now with far better visuals. Way better. The controls are exactly as they were before, in terms of, like, all the mechanics. That's all there. Maybe they've kind of updated the aiming controls a little bit, though. I'll say that. You can still lock on, and that lock on sticks while you can still be aiming elsewhere. That hasn't really changed. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of cutscenes here. So there weren't really a lot of cutscenes in the prior Star Fox games, but we're going to see a lot of cutscenes here with different things going on. Very cinematic experience. Love that splash in the surface there. Just it's a really good animation. And then the water environment just looks way better than it ever has before. Everything does. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how Starfox works, the campaign, there are branching paths that occur depending on how things happen, which is talked about in the direct. But as you see here, you can actually keep check of your different achievements throughout the campaign, and also when you do a mission, you can choose to replay that mission, and maybe that would give you an opportunity to do things differently if you're trying to go in a different direction throughout the campaign. Maybe you want to go somewhere else because you've done the campaign from that trajectory before, but perhaps you're trying to find a different route that you haven't been able to do before. So here, I just kind of want to point out like all the cool particle effects we're seeing. A lot of detail here, and in this section where we're seeing the snowy region, notice there's like snowflakes, kind of like you can see a snowflake here. Like there's just a lot of cool little things kind of landing on the camera here. Also, the lighting's like you're gonna see us all over, right? But like whenever a blaster happens, you're gonna see like light bounce off the environment. Or here, like you see the R-Wing lighting up, for example. Solar just blows me away. Like, I love the visuals here. They just look incredible. I have nothing crazy to add. It's just, it looks incredible. The water here, like people were complaining, hey, we want more like water effects. Well, this is some pretty good, crazy looking turbulent water effects here. And again, we see kind of like this neat little effect they're doing where we can see raindrops hitting the camera. Just fun little stuff. So what I love about this scene here, way better realized, but you can see activity, right? Like, so like you can see like the circuitry over here. You can tell that this had electricity running through it. More activity with the environment. It feels a lot more lively. Another incredibly looking, everything looks incredible. I'm gonna continue to gush about this. Here's something else I find neat. You can actually burn the trees. So yeah, you can just burn different trees in the environment. So that's really fun to see that you can interact with the environment in that way. Look more, or the raindrops as we kind of went through the waterfall. I guess not raindrops, but you know, just water splashing. Love this. Just again, so many cool cutscenes. Here is just a really interesting look at the Great Fox. So we can see the Great Fox has been damaged substantially here. Like this, it doesn't look like it's gonna last. That's how bad it is. But this is the Great Fox, and it has certainly seen a significant design change. Here we see Fox freaking out. Things are getting hectic. Look how mad he is. There, right? Or here we see, like, they've been through some turmoil, right? Like, their chairs are knocked over. Falco's here repairing at the sides. A lot of people have kind of had these conversations about them being depicted as more realistic animals. Like, here, we can see that Falco has literal bird legs. Not boots. All the characters have legs that are shaped like what they would be considering their animal. You know, Pepe's has very rabbit-like feet. We'll get into that. There's some other stuff we're getting into later on. But also notice here, because the Great Fox is damaged, right? You can see kind of like that warning sign here. You can see how they got hit at the side, and that's kind of showing the damage right there on the computer screen. Something I find neat are just how they're handling the different difficulties. So easy, everything's forgiving. You don't lose anything. You know, as I see here, if your wings can't even be broken, so it's less realistic and easy. But in normal, your wings can be damaged. You can see that damage. However, in expert, and this is the one I kind of really appreciate, like, and this is gonna be tough, but like the moment you see some kind of damage, it's instant. Like, it's very realistic. It's how it would be in real life if this were to be real life. Like, if you crash into a wall, your wing's gonna snap. Like, they'll still be able to fly, which maybe not so realistic, but you're gonna see consistent damage there, and that's really fun. So they talk about the challenge mode here, and they're completely different challenges that you wouldn't actually be able to do during the campaign. So there's actually a lot of gameplay variation here. You have the campaign stuff, but you have the challenge mode stuff, so there really is a lot to do. And notice how, like, there's a normal and expert version, but not an easy version for all these challenges. But then they also talk about the multiplayer. And while there are only 3 maps, each map has very unique gameplay styles, so there's certainly more to do there. And something I want to point out, we don't have proof of this yet, but reminder, this is our first look at Starfox for Switch 2. There may be more about this game that we have not learned about yet, so perhaps there could be some unlockable characters, perhaps there may be more unlockable stages. This is plausible, right? We shouldn't assume that everything we've seen is everything that's in the game, because that's usually not actually the case. We'll see though. Something I was concerned about with the multiplayer is because they talk about how you can play with friends and you can do randoms, but can you do a mixture? Like, can I join with 3 or 4 friends and then play the rest against like some people online? And I have not seen that clarified yet, but what I have seen, if you look here, they do show that there is a bots option and there's difficulty options for them as well. So even if you can't get a full party of 8 to play online, you can fill that up with bots of varying difficulty. That way you can get a full party, a full 4v4 going here. Not too concerned about it, but I do kind of hope that there is a way to go get play with your own team of friends against people online. We'll see. Also, you can choose between 2 different teams, the Starfox team and the Starwolf team. So you can play as Starwolf here, and that's very cool. So something I was curious about looking at the multiplayer stuff. So one of the missions is to take this cargo to your home ship, right? So the Great Fox in the case of the Starfox team. And so you see here, you have this blue target. This is the Great Fox, right? But if we go back a few seconds here, notice how there's this purple gate. Purple represents Star Wolf. And I guess that would mean that their ship is just like this set of boxes here. I was kind of hoping maybe there'd be something different, but at the very least, we get a look at where the Star Wolf comes from. And it's this giant box thing. So very interesting. So they do have game share for this, which I think is a big deal. You'll be able to do multiplayer with friends even if they don't have Starfox. I don't have much to say about the mouse controls themselves, but it's really nice to get a nice look at the cockpit view here during actual gameplay. Something they say here, though, that I find interesting. Right here. Mouse targeting can be used in the campaign and challenge mode, implying it can't be used during multiplayer. Maybe because mouse targeting could create an unfair advantage for those who get used to it, with the other players just relying on the more traditional controls. That makes sense. Now, something else they show here is this co-op gameplay, how one person with one Joy-Con can fly around, and the other person with mouse controls can actually do the aiming. This is interesting because this is kind of like a little bit of Star Fox Zero content in here. In Star Fox Zero, they had a co-op mode where one person could control the aiming while the other one controls the movement. One plays on the gamepad, one plays with the Pro Controller on the TV screen. And so we're getting kind of a little bit of that here with Star Fox on Switch 2. Something else I want to point out that I just think is really cool is that they can actually map the character icons and they move based off your own facial expressions if you have the camera. And you can change the backdrop. Just interesting stuff. We kind of thought they might do this, and they are, so that's cool. So in the prologue that they show off at the end of the Star Fox Direct, we can see younger versions of General Pepper and Peppy, and also we get to see Star Fox's dad, James. And there's just some interesting things I want to point out with this. So here we can see James, and you can see he has a gritty look, right? But you can even see that his sunglasses are attached to his headset, and he has like information being shown on the sunglasses. So he has smart sunglasses, which is neat. But also he has a big scar here on his mouth, which shows he's certainly been through some tough stuff. Here's another really cool detail. So on James McCloud's ship, you can see his paw print, but you can also see a smaller paw print. I believe this is Fox's paw print. So it's really cute and kind of sad. You know, the bond that James and Fox had together, we see that represented here on the R-Wing. Now, an interesting implication about this scene is that this is a very poisonous environment, and they're kind of talking about how it doesn't seem possible that Andros would be alive. And so the suggestion is that Andros has found a way to be more than just your standard life form, which, not going to spoil anything, but it's some interesting implications there. Now, here we get an up-close shot at the cockpit. And so just a couple cool little things I'll point out here. You can see that they have a lot of actual text. You know, they got an airlock, a pressure, a seal system. Like, it's very realistically depicted. You can see a loading option here, something to apply. And then over here, you see the G diffuser button. That's very important. They manipulate that when they're getting into the atmosphere for different planets, so it's cool stuff. One last thing I'll point out here from the Direct. Remember how we were talking about the super effects reference? Well, here we can see it very clearly, super effects. So there you go, definitely a reference. But now let's talk about other details. So at the end of the Direct, they do say that Starfox is coming out on June 25th, which I find to be a very curious release time because, well, that's late June, which was what we expected for the record. But that leaves a lot of time in June for other things to occur. We are expecting a big June Nintendo Direct. Finally, a proper Nintendo Direct with a lot of first-party announcements. I imagine they will talk about Starfox again during this Direct, which would be an opportunity to reveal a little bit more about this game. Again, I'm not assuming we've seen everything yet. That's rarely ever the case that they show literally everything about a game within its first presentation. Pretty unlikely. So I expect there to be more surprises. Maybe there's a little bit more to the game in terms of the modes or options that will be shown off in this Direct. We shall see. What really blows me away, though, is the pricing for this game. I think this is a very ambitious looking game, and yet digitally, you're going to be able to get it for $50. Not $70, not $80, $50. Now, physically, as we've seen with other games lately, they are more expensive, or rather, digital is cheaper. And Nintendo's shown several games like this already, so it's very apparent that they are certainly offering a lot of variable pricing here, a lot of more affordable options with some games that seem pretty high quality. And I'll also point out that we've seen deals where you can get the physical version for the same as digital at certain stores, certain retailers like Walmart and Amazon. So I'm very excited to be able to pick up Starfox physically for probably $50. So that's really cool. I'm excited for that. But there's a little bit more shown off on this website right here. This is the American store page. They mention, where is they mention it? Oh, right here. A cinematic take on the Star Fox 64 story, featuring newly voiced dialogue, that part's evident when you listen through, but also an epic orchestral soundtrack. If you pay attention, that also is evident, but it's great to get confirmation that they reorchestrated all the music. Like, they actually got a full orchestra together and redid all the music, and you can hear it. It sounds incredible. So definitely there's a lot of effort being put into this, and I'm very excited for this. But let's point out a few other things. So here, as we saw shared by Obi-Wan from the Japanese website, Star Wolf footage. Starfox. So cool. Very cool. Love it. Here we see Nintendo sharing off just the different renders for the different characters. Here we see Fox, Falco, Slippy, Peppy. I just love their designs. Honestly, I think they look really good. Another look at them here. Beautiful renders. But wait, here's a close-up look at Starwolf as well. Lots of cool detail here. And then also, the box art for Starfox. And this is just another example of how when Nintendo does a full remake, they don't have any sort of extra subtitling. This has been very consistent over the last few years. It's just the name of the original game, Starfox. That's what they're going for here. They're making this as like the definitive way to play Starfox. This is a go-to, and so moving forward, this is kind of like the game you play to get introduced to Starfox, and hopefully they expand on this in the coming years. As you see pointed out by Necrofelipe here, there is extra customization options with the avatars, so you can actually pick different little parts of these different characters from Starfox and add them to your own camera view in Game Share, so really interesting. And then here's a brief look at the Japanese site. There's just a lot of really good visuals on the site here that I just kind of want to glance through real quick. All just good looking. Like, this is such a beautiful game. Oh man, that's a cool render right there. You can see kind of like Fox's face changing a bit. I know it's small, but it looks nice. Up close footage, under the R-Wing, more renders, the maps, a lot more screenshots, top-down view, a look at Andros. You can see here his finger can shoot out stuff. Here it's cool on the website, like they have like a cockpit view and you can like move around a reticule, so that's nice. In this part right here, we can listen to the Japanese version of the voices. As a fan of anime, I'm actually really in love with these Japanese voices. They sound really good. Falco sounds pretty awesome. That fits. He definitely has like that young, energetic feel for Slippy. Here's Rob, by the
緊急
way.
信号を受信しました。接続します。
Very nice. Andros, check this out.
我が復讐を邪魔する者には死あるのみ。
Very evil but robotic at the same time. But also we can hear Starwolf.
遊びは終わりだ、スターフォックス。
Love it.
せいぜい楽しませてくださいよ。
Weird, but
すぐに親父の元に送ったるわ。
Mm-hmm.
アンドルフ様に栄光あれ。
Yep.
くれぐれも気をつけて進んでくれ。敵はまだ岩陰に隠れ潜み、何かを企んでいるかもしれん。スターフォックス、力を貸してくれ。
They play a few different clips there. Oh, and then here's James.
こちらジェームズ・マクラウド。スターフォックスは現在惑星ベノムに接近中。
Cool stuff. Oh man, there's just so much here. So much. This is just the beginning of the official Starfox for Nintendo Switch 2 coverage. A lot to dissect and analyze here. Is there something you noticed that I didn't bring up in this initial analysis? Let me know in the comments below. But if you watched through, you enjoyed this video, you like Nintendo content, and you haven't subscribed before, please subscribe. But I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.